Okay, it's time to get started. I'll call this special meeting of the Lawton Water Authority to order. Please call the roll.
Hankins, Harris, Chapman, Gill, Hampton, Uyghur, Johnson, Warren.
And a quorum is established. Business item number 1, consider approval of the minutes of the Lawton Water Authority special meeting of July 25, 2023. A motion for approval? A motion, do I have a second? Got a second? Please vote. Motion carries 6-0. Item number 2, consider approving a second amendment to sublease agreement with T-Mobile Central LLC for the antenna on top of the city's water tower located at 3510 Northwest Rogers Lane, and take action as necessary. John, who's speaking on this? Are you? Okay, Tim's going to.
Chair, Board, this is an agreement. This is an agreement that goes back to 2001, and it is basically a sublease to allow T-Mobile to install some equipment on top of our water tower on Rogers Lane. It's time to look at doing an amendment, and we've basically, our real property administrator worked on this. It's an amendment. It's a graduated rate increase to what we charge rent for this sublease. You can see as the exhibit, right now we'll be getting, if approved, a little over $27,000 annually for the first extension, and then it goes up to $29,000, almost $30,000 annually. And when the sublease ends, we'd be up to $36,000. So we're looking at a rate increase of about 10% for each extension term, and staff recommends approval.
Is there a motion for approval?
Make such motion. Second.
Motion for approval in a second. Please vote. Motion carries 7-0. Somebody else entered. Hello, Mr. Warren. Item number 3, consider and take action in accepting Oklahoma State designated ARPA grant in the amount of $10 million and authorizing the chairman and secretary to execute the funding agreement with the Oklahoma Water Resources Board, OWRB. The $10 million allows OWRB to take 4% as administrative fee, $400,000, provides a net of $9,600,000 for the construction of Ellsworth Spillway Rehabilitation, Rusty.
Did it work? There we go. There we go. The state ARPA grant funds that the federal government designated to the state to administer. This is $10 million of the grant that was designated for this specific project to the city of Lawton. And what it amounts to is it's a $10 million grant toward the project construction. And we're ready to bid that project here this fall. And what it does is it gives us $10 million, which net actually toward the project $9,600,000 to fund that project.
Council, do you have questions or a motion?
I move we accept this.
Move for approvals or a second? And a second, please vote. Motion carries 7-0. Bringing up item 4, consider and take action in accepting the Oklahoma State Competitive ARPA Grant in the amount of $1 million and authorize the chairman and secretary to execute the funding agreement for the grant. Grant funds are designated for the construction of Lake Ellsworth Spillway Rehabilitation. Rusty.
Yes, this is the state ARPA grant also, but it was a grant that was administered and was competitive with all the municipalities and organizations within the state, of which we applied for this grant and were successful in the application process. And so we competed against a large number of other entities to obtain this $1 million grant.
All right, good job.
This adds to that other grant.
Questions or motions?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion for approval in a couple seconds. Please vote. We don't seem to have problem accepting grants. Item number 5, consider and take action in accepting the FEMA HHD FY22 grant in the amount of $925,251 and authorize the chairman and secretary to execute the agreement. The grant is identified to fund the construction for Lake Ellsworth Spillway Rehabilitation Project. Rusty.
This was a nationwide competitive grant for high-hazard dam rehabilitations nationwide, which we applied for and competitive nationwide, and were successful. And the maximum is $1 million grant. And so the reduction there is the administrative fees.
Got pretty close. By the way, I want to say thank you for staying on top and applying for all those grants. Do we have a motion or questions or comments? A motion for approval in a second. Please vote. Motion carries 7-0. Item number 6, discuss the July 27, 2023 letter from Bank of America regarding the Series 2013 supplemental note indenture dated July 1, 2013, and authorize the chairman to sign acknowledgement of said letter. Joe Don.
Yes. Unfortunately, this letter has become all too commonplace with the city of Lawton over the past few years. And in the interest of transparency, we decided to bring it to council this year. In the past, it's been handled administratively. But ultimately what it is, it's saying that we didn't turn our audit in on time. The trust indenture that with Bank of America on a couple of our loans says that we will turn our audit in within 270 days of the end of that fiscal year, and we have not met that deadline. And this is a letter just basically saying we are, there's no way to sugarcoat it, technically in default. But there's no risk of our loans being recalled or anything such as that. It's again an administrative deal that they are putting us on notice, basically saying we know that we want to let you know that we know you haven't turned your audit in on time. And that's about the best way I can explain this. There's a lot of reasons for that. And I think that whether in the council meeting, there's another agenda item to talk about the audit. And I will go into some of those reasonings then, unless you want me to do it now.
Mayor.
Yes, go ahead.
Mayor,
Mr.
Council, if I can ask that would be my question. When I hear the word default, my question is, why was that audit not sent in?
Well, like I said, it's been all too commonplace, but we are late on our audit. We've been late on our audit. Well, technically, we've been late on our audit for probably the last 15 years.
Why is that?
Timing, getting the audit finished. Our audit is a very large audit.
Yes.
And now, last year, we were about this late before we got it in. I can't remember where we were the year before. We've had it in. Our audit is technically due at the end of December of the year following the ending of the closing date. So This year would have been December 31, 2023. Because of this year's complications that stem from we're auditing a year that we changed software. There were some setup problems with what was done. There were problems stemming from that setup issue that did not allow us to reconcile very easily. Matter of fact, right now, I think we are on our December reconciliation. We reconcile approximately 3,300 items per month per checking account. Wow. And we have about 42 checking accounts.
Okay.
42 different funds. We have to do them each one separately. So that is part of it. We are also auditing a year we changed banks, which complicates the matter. And between those two issues, we're correcting them as we go along. The audit, the reconciliation process is going easier, but I'm not saying that we won't still have some reconciliation issues into next year.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Council, I do have on the regular council meeting an agenda item to direct the staff, to direct the city manager to do what it takes, including outside sources for services, in order to get this caught up as soon as possible and develop a plan. I think it says to develop a plan to be on time in the future. So, you know, the part that is water authority, we've got to sign and acknowledge it. The part that's a management issue, we've got to deal with in the council meeting. Now, are there more questions?
Yes, I have one.
Go ahead.
Do we pay a penalty or a fine for being late on that audit?
No, sir.
Okay. Doesn't help our credit though, does it?
It doesn't. Well, these letters, for example, have not hurt our credit. We have maintained a AA minus credit rating.
It's just a procedure.
It's just a procedure. Yeah, we've maintained that credit rating as long as I researched back.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Mr. Hampton.
Thank you, Mayor. John, I appreciate you bringing this up to the council. You know, we can't fix problems unless we know that there's a problem there. So I do appreciate you bringing this up to us and giving us all an opportunity to address the issue to fix it. So thank you.
Can I have a motion for approval for, to sign that letter?
Move to approve.
Motion and a second, please vote. Motion carries 7-0. Is there a motion for adjournment?
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Is there a second? Motion and a second, please call the roll.
Chapman? Gill?
Yes.
Hampton? Uyghur? Johnson? Warren? Hankins?
Okay, are we ready to jump right in? Are we ready? Okay. So at this time, I will call the regularly scheduled meeting of the Lawton City Council to order. Please stand for the invocation by Minister Matt McGee with First Baptist Church and the Christian Motorcycle Association, and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Minister.
Almighty God, creator of all that is seen and unseen, we ask that you would watch over these proceedings. We recognize you as the ultimate lawgiver and dispenser of justice. Therefore, we request your guidance in the administration of our fair city. May your righteousness be kept in mind as decisions are made. May we remember that you, O Lord, are the ultimate defender of those in low position. As we keep these things in mind, we seek your blessing on our mayor, each city council member, and each citizen in attendance at this meeting. We also pray your blessing over each member of our Lawton Fort Sill community, that you, O Lord, would bless us and keep us, make your face shine upon us, be gracious to us, and grant us your peace. According to your divine providence, in the name of Jesus, so let it be.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, please be seated, and thank you, Minister McGee, and please call the roll.
Chapman? Gill? Hampton? Uyghur? Johnson? Warren? Hankins? Harris?
Okay, now we move on to reports by the mayor and city council. I want to tell you we had a great time at the Lawton Birthday Celebration, 122 years old. The Arts and Humanities Department outdid themselves, and we just had a wonderful time with history and history of buildings in our city, including this one. So I appreciate the arts and humanities. And with that, we'll start with Ward 1 for reports.
I'm just getting caught up from coming back, Mayor. I'll have something next time.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Chapman.
I want to give recognition to our 911 emergency response team and those police that are protecting our city in the middle of the night. For the very first time, I had to call 911 about a week ago, and because someone was encroaching on my property at home, and I'm so glad I have little dogs who barked really loudly for me. But the woman in the 911 responded so professionally and calmly, and I cannot imagine the moving parts with her talking to me and getting information from me, as well as relating that to the police and dispatch. And she was so kind. She said, "No, I'm staying on the phone with you until dispatch comes. I'm going to tell you when the dispatch, the police are in your house, in front of your house." And she said, "Okay, they're there. Go out and make sure," and walked me through that so calmly. And I wish I had gotten her name because she was so professional and calm. And I cannot imagine the kind of training and kind of people that are necessary for those kinds of panic calls, to say the least. So and the policemen were so kind and respectful. And I do want to say one thing. I never identified myself as a city council person. My name is Linda Chapman, and that's all they knew. So that was a good thing for me, for our citizens too. So thank you, 911. Thank you to those 2 policemen who came to my house. I don't know anybody's name, but thank you.
Okay, well, I think we probably need to give them a round of applause, even though they're not here. Very good. Thank you for that report. Mr. Gill? Okay, Mr. Hampton.
I'll give you 3 guesses what I want to say. Just go and get something to eat today at the farmer's market. And I do want to say that I'm saddened that I've missed some of the festivities for our birthday. My brother had some serious hospital procedures that he needed, but I'm going to try to make some of these exciting birthday celebrations that we have for this great city of ours. Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Uyghur.
Thank you, Council, Mayor and Council. I'd just like to say a big applaud to our city manager, our intern city manager. I've had some constituents in my ward that's had some issues, and I've contacted John, and he and the staff have just acted on this thing, and they'll send you emails back and say this is taken care of. So again, I think we give a round of applause to our intern manager and city.
Thank you, Mr. Uyghur. Ms. Johnson.
Just wanted to let everyone know that we're going to start the Youth City Council up again. Due to COVID, we had to kind of pull back a little bit, but the application process is going to open up on August the 22nd. It'll close on September the 26th. The selection process will be through August, and orientation will be in November. Those dates will be acknowledged when we get those dates down. But I really encourage, we had a really great group of youth that were in our first city council. They actually had the opportunity to sit up here as council persons and learn the roles of the city government. And those applications will be available, the new applications will be available again on August the 22nd on our website, and we'll also make sure that we get them out to the schools as well.
Right. Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Mr. Warren.
I just wanted to make mention, citizens and city employees alike, it's beautiful out there today, but it's been pretty hot lately, and it gets too hot really quick if you don't keep up with the hydration. And I know we preach that to the city employees, but don't wait until you think it's too late, because it's going to be way too late by then. So just keep drinking that water and stay in the shade as much as you can.
Thank you, Mr. Warren. And Colonel P.
Well, good afternoon, Mr. Mayor.
Good afternoon.
This is really not just for the council and yourself, sir, but really for the entire city. Just want to express our great appreciation for continuing to welcome the families that have been PCSing in this summer, that are making Lawton their new home. The season's kind of coming to an end. In what the responses we've gotten back from members of the community, the on-post community, has been fantastic, that they've been received with welcome arms. And that's at all ranks, not just the change commands that most of you all come and attend to. So thank you for that. It's busy week on post as it is for the city with school starting up on Thursday, so we're looking forward to that. And then also wanted to just kind of acknowledge the great relationship that we have, not just with the Lawton fire team and community, but also the other surrounding counties. With all the rain that we've had kind of in the early summer, we've got an extreme amount of growth, and we're expecting a pretty busy fire season here in August and September. And just really appreciate the great relationships we have, and look forward to continue to help one another on post and off post with that support. And then the last thing, I too wanted to provide a nice little shout out to the farmers market. I picked up some beautiful squash last week, and it made a great meal.
All right.
Thank you.
And while we're on it, I wanted to say that I really appreciated Major General Brooks coming and speaking briefly at the birthday celebration. That was a special treat, and we're excited to have General Brooks back. And be sure and pass that on for us, okay?
Yes, sir, I will. And I think you'll see a lot of him over the next couple of years. He's really looking forward to be back in the community, and he and his wife, and then Command Sergeant Major Sartain and his wife are really excited to be here.
All right. Thank you, sir. And this moves us on to audience participation. Anyone having an item of business to present to the City Council that does not appear on the agenda, please come forward at this time. David, you're up.
Surprise, surprise. David Tyler, 501 Southwest 77th Street, Lawton, Oklahoma. 2019, that committee that oversees Shepler Park and the then-to-be-built farmers market, they said using the old police station would interfere with what they had on their agenda for that property. That's when the lies started. It's too small. Didn't even have plans. It's too small. We roll in to last year. It's too small. I go to a committee meeting. I said, what's maximum acreage you need to put that transfer site there? They said 1.5 acres. That's over 77,000 square feet. That's almost between 1.5 acres, 1.5 acres, and 2 acres. So there's plenty of room. Got to come up with something else. Now we say, well, it's not big enough for the maintenance and the transfer site. Well, you know what? Staff stood right up here last year, and they said, preferably, it's better they be separate. That's what they said. Really, you don't want to have them together. So that site's perfect. It all started to say, well, they have to be together now. They have to be together. That's still too small. But you tear down the building and you leave the basement and say, we cannot build over that basement. And I agree with that. That old police station took up 10,000 square feet. That leaves 67,000 square feet to put a 2,000 square foot building. You got to come up with excuses, because since 2019, people would sacrifice their firstborn to ensure that that transfer site was not built there. 5 of you live in areas where your constituents are the ones that are poor and have to ride that. All you've given them is another bus stop. Because if for some reason that library, they can't go in, they're out in the weather. I had one council member said, well, they still have shelter. And they're climate controlled. Whatever the climate is, that's what controls it. And the bathroom facilities that they would have available is one porta potty if that library is closed. I have stood up here for over a year saying my concern is the safety of the people that ride that bus. Yours is a parking lot.
Is there anyone else that would like to come forward at this time of audience participation? Seeing none, I will close audience participation, move on to the consent agenda. Now, actually, item number 24 is on the business agenda. We will be striking that. On the consent agenda, we will be striking item number 13. Council, are there any other items you'd like to pull from the consent agenda? Can I get a motion?
Mayor and council, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented with the exception of striking number 13.
Is there a second?
Second.
Please vote. And the consent agenda passes 8-0. That brings up item number 15. Receive a presentation from the Uninsured Vehicle Enforcement Diversion UVED Program Director. Council will consider whether to participate in the program and approve camera installation at 3 separate locations. Council is further empowered to take any other action relating to UVED program participation or support it deems appropriate. Come on up and please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. My name is Amanda Couch. I am the director of the UVED program at the District Attorney's Council. And I would just like to talk to you briefly about our program. And, oh, I do have a clicker. Is this, okay, perfect. So I know that you are all capable of reading, so I will just hit the highlights. Back in 2015, an insurance industry study indicated that either Oklahoma or Florida had the worst uninsured rate in the country. It was somewhere in the neighborhood of 24 to 26%. So the Insurance Department, the Tax Commission, and the District Attorney's Council worked together to put forward some legislation, and the Uninsured Vehicle Enforcement Diversion Program, longest title ever, was born. We have been in operation since the end of 2018. We sent our first notices out in 2019. The Insurance Department and the Tax Commission worked together to produce what we call a hot list, which is a list of personally registered vehicles that don't appear to have personal lines of insurance. And that's important, and we'll get into that later. But we have 79 cameras across the state. We have at least one in every judicial district or DA district. For some reason, those two things are not the same. But nevertheless, we have one in each and then more in metropolitan areas. If your vehicle passes one of our cameras and you do not have insurance according to the hot list, then a notice is generated. It comes first to our vendor, who takes a look at it for quality assurance. Then it comes to investigators in my office. I have 2 of them. They're law enforcement officers. They check it to make sure that it is on a roadway, that the license plate is clear, and they issue an affidavit that says, yes, I believe this vehicle is in violation of the compulsory insurance law. The final step is that it comes to my office, and if I say, yes, this does look to be in order, then the notice goes out to the citizen, inviting them to contact us to let us know why maybe we're wrong, because that does happen, or if they'd like to enroll in the diversion program, thereby keeping all of these uninsured people from clogging up the court system, from going through prosecution, which I really appreciate DA Kabelka coming today to support me on this, and bringing down the level of uninsured in the state of Oklahoma. So within our 2-year program, because it is a 2-year diversion, we currently have over 50,000 people enrolled. Over the life of the program, since the beginning of 2019, we've enrolled over 90,000, almost 91. And we have a 75% positive outcome rate. That means of all the people we send a notice to, 75% of them turn up later to either be insured or enrolled in the program or both. When we started this, we had 350,000 people on the hot list. That is down to 191,833. It's an approximate statewide reduction of 42%. Of course, you can imagine that we sometimes get some friendly correspondence from citizens after they have received some of our friendly correspondence. These are a little hard to read, but as usual, you can't be happy with one hand in the taxpayer's pocket. You have to have both. I transferred the title of the vehicle in person to Derek at the tag agency. Notarized the transaction. I'm unable to locate a bill of sale. I'm appreciative of your efforts to deter uninsured driving, but I believe citing the individual responsible would be more effective. Well, me too. I love this one. If you would have checked at the very bottom, this car is not registered to me. All caps, exclamation point. We do check. We get our information from the tax commission directly in correspondence with the insurance department. Ugh, and this is my favorite. I sold this 1995 Chevy Astro van 9 o'clock at night to 3 Mexican men. It did not run. They tow it off. They said it was going to Mexico, but I guess they lied. Sold 12/14/18. This is an email from a gentleman up in the Panhandle. We have sent one person through to prosecution over the two-year program. We referred them up to District 1, to DA Leach, and he actually prosecuted this gentleman. Now, he has sent us to date 498 emails. This is number 285. I call this my Thanksgiving wish. It's my earnest wish for you that this day of Thanksgiving be the most miserable one you ever experience. You deserve no better. May your turkey be dry and leathery, your stuffing stale and gelatinous, your yams gritty, your gravy rancid, and your cranberries fermented and nauseating. May your relatives and in-laws be more intolerable than your prior imaginings would have allowed. May the children misbehave beyond the reach of admonishment or cajolement. May all your favorite teams lose by a half a dozen touchdowns. May the usual dirty looks and annoyed passive aggressions between spouses on such occasions send you to bed that night in unresolved anger over you still don't know what. May your sat-nav-bot voice be more irritating than usual, and may your tires be flat when at long last it is time to go home. This gentleman writes things at least this long, a couple times a month, reminding us of just how much he dislikes our program. However, he did appear in court and pay a $250 fine. He is the only person to have been found guilty as a result of the uninsured vehicle enforcement diversion program. Everyone else, for the most part, chooses to participate in diversion and save themselves the trouble of going to court, the court fees, the time off work, etc. So what does this have to do with Lawton? So we currently have one camera at the 4700 block of Cash Road. That is on a Public Services of Oklahoma pole. It has been there since early 2021. We would like to move 3 of our cameras from the Oklahoma City area to Lawton because we think that Lawton merits a little bit more attention from the UVED program. The first one, and these are subject a little bit to change. These are all siren poles because those are city-owned poles, which is why we're here asking to the city's permission. The first one we'd like to put in, we think it's probably at Southwest 11th Street, which is there. I had to teach myself Lawton in order to get this done. Northwest 67th Street, there. And then one on East Gore, over there. Now, like I said, there may be some reasons that these poles are not appropriate when we get out there. If the electric boxes are not quite right or if they're not facing the right way, we might use some of the other siren poles, but that's generally the areas where we would like to be because we think it gives a good coverage of the city at that point. So, if any of you are interested, we do provide, free of charge, because we send it as an email and you can print it yourself, these signs for the windows. Often we are contacted by police departments that say people have come here, we don't know what to do with this, so we will provide this sign that tells them, again, although it is written on the notice, exactly what to do if they receive a notice and that your police department cannot take payments. And I am happy to provide a copy of the notice of violation if anyone is interested in seeing it. That is all I have to say, and I'm happy to take questions. My contact information is there, and I'm there all the time, except when I'm here. So, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. And council, the recommended action is approve the installation of the 3 UVED cameras at the recommended locations. Do you have questions or motions? Or discussion?
Mayor and council, having been the recipient of recipient's a bad word, but being the victim of a uninsured driver at one point in my life, I can tell you that if you haven't ever had that happen, it's quite frustrating and expensive because your insurance is not going to be happy about covering it either, if they will. So this is a really good program. It's as close to a passive program as you can get, I think. They're not out there beating on people's doors and dragging people off to jail unless, they write really poor emails. But I just make a motion to approve this, and if they needed a couple more, I don't see a problem with that either.
I'll second that motion, but I had a question.
Okay, hold on just a minute. We have a motion for approval and a second. Discussion or debate? Mr. Hampton.
Thank you, Mayor. The one camera that we do have has been fairly effective, as it did. I might have been reading if you said something about how what the numbers were or anything with that one camera we've had.
The camera that's here in Lawton has been very effective. We have been able to find quite a few uninsured drivers here, which is also why we chose Lawton as the next place to perhaps bump up our camera presence, because we'd like to get that down in this area. Like, the more we catch, the more we realize there must be around, and so we'd like to get that down for you folks.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yes, Colonel, did you want to say something? Yes, sir.
Am I able to ask a question?
No, you're
okay,
great.
The military represents a significant portion of the community. We really consider ourselves one together as Lawton Fort Sill. How does this work for out-of-state license as well? Because I'm sure we potentially could have a handful of our community uninsured, and just kind of to be able to help us just to make sure the community is safer.
I'm so glad you asked. So our cameras only track Oklahoma licenses for the license plates. For the most part, it's the Scissor-Tail and then a couple of tribes that participate in the insurance verification system. So to begin with, we don't see any of the out-of-state plates. The cameras just ignore them. I will say that with military, we occasionally find that they have an Oklahoma plate because they've registered here as they were supposed to, but are still carrying insurance in their previous state. And of course, then we don't see that insurance. That's what I was talking about before. They're personally registered, but because only Oklahoma agents report to OCIVs, then the insurance verification system, we don't always see it. And so when that happens, they usually email or call. There is an exception for military. They do not have to abide by this, and we are prompt as possible to dismiss those right away and invite them to call back in anytime they get another.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Colonel. Yes, Ms. Johnson.
I just had a quick question. Can you kind of give a short summary of the time that someone receives a letter and what that process is after that, kind of a timeline?
Absolutely. We operate almost in real time, and so the things that are captured by camera today, we will see for approval today or tomorrow. The notices go out then within a week or so, and then there is a 30-day timeline to please respond. After 90 days, you are subject to receiving yet another notice with another enrollment fee on top of that. But I will point out that the enrollment fee, which is set by statute, is significantly lower than what it would cost you if you got a ticket and had to go to court and pay your lawyer and take time off work, et cetera. That's the whole point.
Any further questions? Okay, please vote. Motion carries 8-0. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Good job. Hey. Item number 16, receive an update on the status of the street repairs on West Gore Boulevard from 67th Street to 82nd Street and give direction to staff as necessary. Joe Painter.
Mayor and council, an update. I just got back today, so I don't know. We are still waiting on our utility companies to get relocated. We have AT&T and Summit that haven't finished their utility relocations, and we estimate they're still 2 months out. That combined with negotiations with our consultant that we had to settle up with, we missed the lettings for fiscal year 20, what would it be, 23 for ODOT. So we're going to be into their next letting cycle, so it'll be the first of next year before we will let this project out. ODOT will let it out for construction.
Mr. Uyghur?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. What are we doing or what can we do regarding the gravel that's there between 67th and 82nd? Because I've driven that, and a lot of my constituents have called saying they're having to go through neighborhoods, which is putting more stress on our other streets, because you can't drive over 5 miles an hour inside your car on that gravel because it's just like this. What can we do, or what should be the utilities be doing who's responsible for maintaining that gravel?
Ultimately, we are, but we will work with those utility companies to get them finished up and get all that cleaned up. When we leave, there should be a drivable surface there. Of course, we got months in between, finishing up the utilities and getting to the roadway construction.
Okay.
So we'll get a drivable surface put back.
I've received a lot of calls on it because some of them said no one's doing anything on here, there's no activity. And then other times I received some phone calls just last week, hey, they're doing something, there's people there. And
we've struggled a lot with AT&T to get them.
I understand.
Get them out there.
I appreciate the update.
Thanks.
Okay, just to clarify, can we go out there and smooth that gravel out that the westbound lane is expected to drive on? It's really bad. Can we smooth
We
that
can.
out?
I'll go look at it tomorrow and we'll get something done.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments? Okay, thank you very much, Joe.
Thank you.
Good to have you back. And that, so we have no action on there, right? Mr. Uyghur? Okay, we'll move on to 17. Discuss the potential transfer of management of the city's aquatics program and facilities to the Lawton Youth Sports Trust Authority and take action as deemed necessary. Mr. Warren?
Mayor and council, basically, this item, in my mind, is simply to direct staff and to work with the Youth Sports Authority to see if that is something that we can do. I don't think we should just dump it on them. I think we should probably have a discussion with them and make sure that that's something that they can do and that they feel comfortable doing. I've been so happy with the speed at which the youth sports has taken off and the way it's been overseen. And I think if we can do that with a focus with our aquatics program, we'll be a lot better from the start. Plus, that will give an opportunity for Eastern or whoever we would let that contract to if the Youth Sports Authority didn't want to do it themselves. It gives them the ability to oversee at the very beginning of the installation of any aquatics that we decide to do at any of our parks. Because the worst thing that can happen is for us to, and not to say anything bad about people that engineer and design aquatic programs, but they're not necessarily the ones that have to work with them after the fact. And so it's important to have somebody in there that runs aquatics programs and things to oversee that a little bit and say, yeah, that's beautiful, but you might not want to do that because here's what's going to happen in 2 years' time. And that way you can maybe avoid some pitfalls that we might get into just because something's pretty. I mean, we all have a tendency to think things that are, they're real pretty when we get the slideshow, but 5 years later, when you couldn't get that vacuum back there in the corner of that pool the way they built it, it's going to be too late at that point. So basically, it would be just a discussion with the Youth Sports Authority and see if that's something that they want to do, and if so, we can come up with an agreement.
Okay, since you're on that authority, if I'm not mistaken, are you wanting to initiate that yourself and then come back to council? So do you have any action that you want to take today?
No real action other than just to, I guess, I don't ever like to step on the manager, just direct the manager to allow us to have discussions with.
Okay, so that is a motion. So we do have a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Is there discussion or debate? Please vote. Need one more. I need one more vote. Motion carries 8-0. Bringing up item 18, consider the creation of an ad hoc committee on streets for the purpose of reviewing the pavement assessment study, maintaining oversight of Avalorum street projects, creating an 8-year plan for street improvements, communicating the plan with citizens, and discussing any other street issues as they arise. Joe, I was going to comment, but you get after it.
Just wanted to say that this is a great idea, and it would be a great help to the engineering department.
All right, so I've got a few things I want to say here. We all know that we have a sizable task to bring our streets and our city to a place that we can be proud of. Just the thought of how large our street challenge is has been on my mind, and I know many of you as well, even more since the pavement assessment study. If you'll remember, that study said we needed $30 million per year just to stay even. Well, where's that going to come from? And just thinking about it's enough to give you a headache. And it's fair to say that there has been some hand-wringing going on. I recently had an opportunity to visit with a former ODOT maintenance and division engineer and actually did a ride-along as we drove around town. After hearing what they had to say, I asked another division engineer to ride along. I just wanted to see if they'd say the same thing. I didn't tell the second one what the first one said, and they said almost the same thing. And both said we need to adopt a strategy similar to ODOT's on improving roads, that there was no way we could replace all the roads that people think need to be replaced. There had to be improvement processes. Doing these ride-alongs really impacted my thinking and believing that there is a reasonable pathway forward. We do not have to continue to flounder, which I think is a fair term for where we currently are. Our True North statement says that we will make no excuses or settle for in our pursuit of excellence. It's time to stop wringing our hands because of the size of the task and roll up our sleeves and define the pathway forward. So I want to appoint an ad hoc committee on streets with the idea in mind that first they set the priorities for the new ad valorem program. I've had a few contacts that's important to the citizens, that they know the priority, that we're going to address it. Of course, the critical bridges will be first, and then the rest needs to be prioritized and communicated to the citizens. Second, take a look at ODOT's maintenance and improvement program and build a policy with the help of our staff and possibly even outside engineering firms. Third, to set priorities for road replacement and, the important part, improvement. Fourth, to come up with we say 8-year plan because ODOT has 8-year term, but a plan for some number of years to get us to a place that we can be proud and the cost to get there. Now, I forgot to mention the $60 million ad valorem is just part of our plan to move forward. We have already, and this has largely gone ignored, but we tripled the funds in the budget for street materials, going from approximately $1.5 million to $4.5 million. That's triple our materials budget, and that will do a lot of overlays. Now, if it pleases the council, I'd like a motion for the ad hoc council committee on streets with Councilman George Gill, Alan Hampton, and Kelly Harris. Mr. Gill would be the chair as he is a trained engineer. Mr. Warren, do you have anything that you'd like to add on this?
Council, I think that this is a really good idea. It's a little bit like a lot of the other things that we've been facing, and we talked about one of them during the Water Authority as far as the being behind. We can fix a street this year, and we can fix in each one of our wards. We can do one every 3 years or whatever. And yeah, we're replacing a road, but we're not making any headway. until we get to a point where we can maintain, repair, and replace, because that was the important thing that I took from it, was that we have to do all three. We have roads that we have to replace. There's no repairing them. Repairing them is a waste of money. There's roads that we have to repair that are still savable. And then there's the maintenance. And if we don't do all of those things, then we get behind and you can't ever catch back up again. And that's the situation we're in now, is you just can't catch back up. And this is the only way to catch back up, is you have to take a big bite and you have to do it over a long term, and you have to do it with a plan. And I always use this as an example, but it's so much like the way Oklahoma City did their first maps. They just listed it all out, and it's on a list, and they checked it off, and then at the end of that period of time, whatever that is, 5 years, 10 years, 15, 30, you go back to the citizens and you say, here's the things that we told you we were going to do with that money, and here's the things that we did, and now we'd like to do the next 15 things, or whatever's needed. I wish it wasn't this way, but it gets this way because I think because council a lot of times doesn't want to bite the bullet and tell the citizens that we're going to have to do this, and it's going to cost money. We all kind of like to pretend that if we don't think about it, that this stuff's just going to happen and it doesn't cost anything, and it just doesn't work that way. So I think this is a good plan. I think this is really the only plan that gets us where we need to be eventually.
So that sounded kind of like a motion for approval.
I'd make a motion to approve.
Okay, is there a second? We do have a second. Discussion or debate. Mr. Gill.
I need a red light.
You should have.
I had mine on.
Oh, okay.
It's not coming on.
It's not coming on?
Oh, yeah, it is. Okay. I wanted to clarify, because maybe I just don't understand. We did have a pretty extensive assessment already done, right? Where the roads were checked and we decided which ones were the most in need. And so we are already started on this, right?
That's correct. And this will just take that, get the council involved in setting the priorities, getting a overall strategy in place like ODOT does. They have to bring each division has to bring a certain percentage of their fair roads to good each year, so that they have a schedule of what they have to do, and they have a plan going forward. They have an 8-year plan for replacing roads, and resurfacing. Then they have a plan to bring the quality of a road higher.
Okay, and this is something that probably would be able to be put on the website, the city website, and the citizens could even see the progress.
Oh, I think
possibly.
absolutely.
'Cause
That's
I
part of
think,
the transparency we want to bring.
They're
Yeah.
lying in wait to see what happens, so
Yeah.
that'd be great.
Okay, Mr. Gill.
Let me say a couple of things. I mean, we all know we need new roads, streets, and we need to work on our bridges. And we're about 50 years at least behind the curve on this. And I'm going to address a couple of issues here. I think there's a misunderstanding, and possibly answer some of your questions, on these roads, these streets that we have out there. Not every street needs to be torn up and put back in new. We have a lot of streets that can be resurfaced and get another 7, 10, or plus years out of them. And I think that was in the report that we just had done that shows the conditions on a percentage scale, like 35% and 50% of good, bad, and indifferent. So we have to develop a maintenance program of such, which I'm going to go over in just a second. But I want to say that there's 3 things we need to think about doing. One is setting the priorities for this new ad valorem tax, that we're going to continue and get those dollars and spend them in this program. Secondly, we need to take a look at ODOT's maintenance and improvements program and again build a policy around this. And we have these reports, and we see what the state does, and we see what their maintenance program is. And the state has a very successful maintenance program, not just because they say so, but you can look at historical data and see the ages and the conditions of the surface of these roads in the state of Oklahoma. And surprisingly, they're really pretty good for their age. Many of them are. And thirdly, we need to set priorities for replacement and improvement. So I made a mission statement up that I want to read. This mission statement will just give us a basic outline, and I want engineering to listen real closely to this. I think this is something that we need to address, and it's the fact that we are in the business of water drainage. Water is the problem. Our focus is to address water drainage obstacles on a daily basis and instill a maintenance and improvement mentality. In other words, we need to address the fact that water is the problem, drainage is the problem, and this is deteriorating and ruining our roads. And that's not just me saying it. It's historical data from the state of Oklahoma and any other state road division, because this is what tears your roads up. And this is something we really need to prioritize. And then prioritizing cost-effective repairing and life-extending measures over replacing the roads. So in other words, we need to look at this. We need to do maintenance where we can. We need to keep our maintenance going. We need to resurface roads. Then those roads that we have to replace, which will cost us a lot more money, we will do those. So this is just a long-range mission, something we need to look at, and that's what we're going to get accomplished. Thank you.
Mr. Harris.
I'm going to be the bad guy here. I agree with Councilman Warren and Councilman Gill, and I think probably the number one thing I hear about is roads, and my own road is horrible. But I'd like to Councilman Warren mentioned the MAPS program in Oklahoma City, and I was in Oklahoma City 35 years ago when they started that. And I remember thinking, these guys are nuts, but they did it. And they built an arena that everybody said, what? And lo and behold, now they have a basketball team. It takes vision, but it also takes money. We can have whatever kind of city we want, as nice as we want it to be, but somebody's got to pay the bill. So we need to invest in our community. If we want nice stuff, we have to invest. And so the road, the CIP, or extension of the CIP for the roads is the way we're going to do this. Engineering, Rusty has already done a great job finding a way to start replacing water lines and sewer lines. So we're making progress. We're working hard. It's not going to happen overnight, though. We have to have a 10-year view, a 20-year view, a 30-year view, as George said. And so you're going to squawk when we say we got to pay for it, but if you want nice stuff, if you want nice roads, they cost money, and they're about $1 million per lane mile if we have to replace them. So, $10 million doesn't go very far. So be prepared. If you want nice stuff, we're going to ask you to pay for it.
Yes, Mayor. I just would like to comment. I really think all around with anything that we do here in the city, one of the things I think that we have been dealing with is long-term maintenance and some type of plan to make sure that what we fix, we can keep going. And I am excited about this program because of that. I mean, we up here in the council have limited time in the seats that we're in, but it certainly is good to be working with the city staff and looking at long-term maintenance and maintaining our roads and making sure that we stay on the plan. So I'm very supportive. I'm very impressed. We went out and did Ferris and did a fantastic job on that and did it very quickly. And our city staff should be committed for doing that. So I think that we have all the talent that we need, And I'm excited about the things that we're doing here at the council to move forward on these items.
Mr. Gill.
Even after all that, I left one thing out. This is about an 8 to 10 year program. I think the mayor mentioned that, but I just wanted to clarify that. It'll take us 8 to 10 years to really start seeing improvements. But that's a very reasonable time period, and it's something that we can get done. Thank you.
So I'm going to clarify. We'll start seeing improvements in a year, but we expect to have a plan come out of this committee that over the next decade, we take a giant step forward in our image as troop-payers. Anybody else? Mr. Harris.
So I have a question. So I thought that the street study said we have $450 million worth of work to be done. We're not anticipating doing all of that in 8 years, are we?
No.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Thank you. Please vote.
That's a grandeur. No, sorry.
Need 2 more votes. Motion carries 8-0, bringing up number 19. Discuss the reasons for the delay in completing the FY 21-22 audit and direct the city manager prioritize its completion as the top priority, utilizing outside resources if necessary for efficiency, and provide a status update every 30 days until completion. Now, Joe Don, before you start, we've really already discussed that. I want everybody to ask all the questions that you want to ask, but here is my recommended motion: to direct the city manager to make the completion of the FY 21-22 audit the top priority through any means necessary, including the use of outside resources in accordance with the True North culture statement, by doing so efficiently, transparently, and making no excuses. Council, do you have questions for Joe Don or statements? And if not, can I get a motion?
I just have I guess a statement. Pardon me. And this is, you're right, there is no excuses. That's our new mantra, and we have to stick to it. It's a good thing. There have been some reasons for this tardiness over the years. It seems like every time we dig ourselves out of one, we fall into another one. But part of that problem has been we never got even. We're always working from behind. And I think this is a great idea to do whatever we have to do. If we have to hire, 2 accounting firms to help us get even, we need to get even and get caught up, because then it's a lot easier to get things done in the time that's required. When you're constantly working on the backlog, it's very difficult to make any headway. So that said, would make a motion to direct the city manager to make the completion of the FY 2021-2022 audit top priority through any means necessary, including the use of outside resources in accordance with the True North culture statement, by doing so efficiently, transparently, and making no excuses.
So I'm going to ask you before we get a second. You know what I just realized I forgot was that I think we need, along with this, a policy that says if you're not going to have it done on time, notify the council 60 days ahead so we can authorize extra help to get us done on time. I think the citizens want it on time. It shows transparency when we get it done on time, and it doesn't look good to get these letters saying we're in default. And even if it doesn't mean much, it means much. So would you please accept that friendly amendment to create a policy to notify us 60 days ahead of time if we're not going to meet the statutory deadline?
I would gladly amend.
Is there a second? Do you have a second? Discussion or debate? Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. Joe Don, are we having, and I'm sure this is maybe before you were here, are we having difficulty getting information from the different authorities or the different areas outside of just here?
We have had that difficulty in the past. I'm not going to say that's the reason for the tardiness of this audit, but it has been a reason in the past. We have put some things in place that help us get those audits in a more timely fashion, and the authorities have been well to work with us on those.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for bringing this to our attention also.
Please, Mr. Hampton.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to make a comment. There's been several times that I'm sitting up here and things that should have probably got done didn't get done because the council wasn't notified. And the only reason I say that is because with the funding, I think some of these things can get taken care of. And it does help when we as a team bring it up here at the dais so that we can make a decision on spending the extra money to be able to get these things done. And with that, I think that Councilman Warren was pointing that out, but I wanted to bring that up because I know that there's been some other things that probably could have gotten done if it had come to the council earlier. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, seeing none others, I'll call for a vote. Motion carries 8-0. Bringing up item 20, receive a report from the city manager on the status of the True North Statement implementation and provide the city council an opportunity to give further direction and support as needed. City manager.
Mayor, council, good afternoon. Before I get into my little presentation, I do want to say, first off, though, that Tammy Huffman put the slide deck together for me. There's no way I'm that creative or colorful. I think all of you guys know that, so she did a wonderful job. But I really appreciated this task, which I kind of interpreted as, how do we implement a culture change? And, it's one thing to put words on paper, but it's another thing to, to start saying that, introduce it into the culture of the organization, and then, after a while, it becomes sort of second nature. And so it got me thinking about my high school football coach. And, I wasn't very good at football. The team wasn't very good. We had, 13 guys on the team. You need 11, so there was like never any substitutes. But our coach was able to impress upon us through constant reinforcement and talking about like which gaps we were responsible for and, going over it like in film and practice and during the game. And you never forgot what your responsibility was. And so like he really took this group of very unathletic kids and molded them into like this team that could actually, play pretty good team defense. And I think that's what this is kind of about. We're, a team, and we don't always equal the sum of our parts. We've got a lot of really good employees. We've got a lot of really good subject matter experts here in the city. But I kind of view this as bringing it all together. So without further ado, this is my plan to implement the culture change. So next slide, please. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is part of this new program is we're going to incentivize behavior that supports the True North Statement. So we're going to have the City Manager's True North Award, which we're going to call the North Star, kind of pithy, I think. And you can see the different criteria that we're going to have in order to determine who gets the North Star on a monthly basis. But essentially, what we're going to be looking at is we're going to be looking at high performers. We're going to be looking at individuals who are team players who can, plug and play. You put them in, they immediately can get along with the group. They can execute their mission. They can do what they need to do. We're going to also incentivize employees that take initiative and don't only seek more innovative and more efficient practices when they're told to do it, but when they realize that something's not working well, when they they get some feedback from citizens that things aren't going well, that they make those changes and they implement them on the spot, so we can become a world-class customer service organization. And finally, and in my opinion, most importantly, we're going to incentivize and reward good leaders. Because in order for any of this to take effect, in order for the city to change its organizational culture, in order for us to become better public servants, we need good leaders, and we need them at all levels. And so that's what this award is going to recognize. And so as part of this this North Star Award, they'll get a certificate, they'll get a $500 bonus, and they will get a day off. And again, we'll do that on a monthly basis. Okay, next slide. The next way we're going to incentivize and inculcate this organizational change is by repetition. So one of the things that we're going to do, and the mayor's already done with this, with his business cards on the back, he's got the True North Culture Statement. I can't read it, so it's pretty small. So what we're going to do is we're going to make it a little bit larger. We're going to get some 3x5 index cards, laminate them, put the True North Statement on these cards. We're going to distribute them to every employee in the City of Lawton government, to include elected officials. So everyone will have them. We'll have kind of like a pocket guide. You can refer to it as it's being discussed. And the second thing that we're going to do, and I think that's also going to be integral in helping this organizational change gain footing, is every time we have a director or we have an employee come up here and brief council on an agenda item, they're going to relate the agenda item and what they're talking about to a specific portion of the True North Statement. So if it's customer service, they're going to talk about that. If it's whatever their initiative is, if it's becoming more efficient, they're going to relate it to that. So that's going to be something that we start doing as a matter of practice. Okay, next slide, please. The other thing that we're going to do is we're going to train on this. So in order to do it, we're going to have to train, and we're going to use kind of an old Army crawl, walk, run model. It's tried and true. It always works. So we're going to start out with some training where we're discussing organizational change and our new organizational values. These I have bolded on the bottom of the slide here, 2 trainings that we're going to do that are upcoming, which is diversity, inclusion, and customer service, and how both of those trainings will support the True North Statement. And I mean, that's how we're going to start getting this into action. And so that is really with help of the Human Resources Department, and thank you, Craig. So subject to your questions, that's all I have. Thank you.
Sounds like a lot of thought process went into that. One of the things I might have missed was I'd kind of like to see some posters. Did you address that and I just missed it?
No, Mayor, I didn't, but I did think about it. And so we're going to get some signs made, and we're going to post those around City Hall.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. And anyone else have any comments?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Harris.
So, I think this is awesome. And my question is, how do we get to every single employee, reach them, and to impress upon them how important this is, not only for our constituents, but for the excellence of the city overall, and that we want them to be excellent so that we can reward them.
Councilman Harris, I think the best way to do that, and I used to be in a unit, and the motto of the unit was deeds above words. So we show it with our deeds. We lead by example. You're not going to be able to communicate with, every one of our 828 employees, but you can show it in what we do as a governing body and your daily actions and how you interact with the staff members that you interact with, and how how those relationships inform your greater attitude toward the city staff. So that's how you do it, in my opinion.
Mayor, we can all do something. I think, I hate to, this is about employees and the council, but we can't leave the citizens out either. They can help so much in so many ways. They may not see it, but, if the staff doesn't have to work as hard writing citations for trash that's been put out too early or not picked up, that's a cost saving right there. And it's good for our employees to not have to do every little thing for our citizens. We want to be there to serve, but there's such a thing as the citizens cooperating and taking personal responsibility for things. That is prevention. So.
Yes, initiating any program is always a wonderful thing, and this is certainly inviting some welcoming and refreshing changes. And I was just going to ask, I might have missed it, John, but there, in any program, I guess there's making it better, there's always suggestions, and I guess you have something worked in there to where everybody can add in as a team and make suggestions as we move forward in the development of this?
Councilman Hampton, we do, but that's not to say that we couldn't improve things. I mean, we already have some feedback mechanisms in place, like the iHelp portal, but as we've discussed, there's issues with that because there's a backlog of different calls that have never been closed out effectively. So to answer your question, we absolutely plan to incorporate feedback from elected officials and citizens, but we're still we're still discussing ideas, and we're not 100% sold at this point on how we're going to do that, but we absolutely will do that.
Other comments? Okay. No motions here, so no action. And we're going to take about a 5-minute break.
8, Judy.
We're about to get started. Please return to your seats.
Good, you? Are you with me?
Do you need anything?
No, I really don't.
Are you
I
sure?
mean, yeah, just back up.
Okay. You
I
want me
guess
to
it
sit
gets
here?
crazy. It says something gets crazy.
I can't imagine it getting crazy. This is a no-brainer to me. Let's do this.
Let's do this. Oh, hold on, let me get over here.
Okay, are we ready to get started? Okay, brings up item number 21. Discuss a plan to install security cameras in city parks and direct staff to issue an RFP. Judy,
Hey, how are you?
I'm some kind of wonderful. How are you?
Wonderful. Very wonderful. Okay, so basically, I'm just going to show you some images of our parks to, this is Greer Park. So I'm hoping you got the PDFs also in front of you. This is Greer Park, and I just put some places of possible camera placements. On here, I did it around the playground and the concessionaire, or the bathrooms and the group use on this one. And I got 2 quotes for you. Now, these are broad estimates of quotes, and I just put the cameras in places where most people congregate. So I don't have it around the track or anything like that. And the first one I got from was Security Lines. It's $65,000. The other one is Verkada, which is $52,000. These do not include any installation, if there's power on the poles, or data plans. So the little buffer that you see around those is about 150 feet radius. So that also depends on if there's trees in the way or equipment. So that could take down the visibility of the camera down some. So I did, this one was for Greer, and this is for the McMahon Ball Field. There's 4 near the skate park and 3 over there where the concession stand and the bathrooms are. And as you can tell, that's about a 150-foot radius. The other one is Elmer Thomas Park. I did it around the Holiday House, the playground and the splash pad, and where the Miracle Field is. And those are the quotes at the bottom of it. Those are estimates, very broad, as I stated on there.
So, okay, so these are estimates. It's not ready to make decisions on it. We would have to put out an RFP.
Yes, and I would need some feedback on as far as where would we like these placed at, or if there's, basically when we do the estimates, what I need to get as far as a quote from vendors is we'll have to probably inspect these placements because of electricity, how much would, if the pole there is even, has the capability to have a camera installed up on it.
So, where would these be monitored?
Dispatch.
Okay. And would they have a feature on them, like my cameras at my house notify me if something sets them off? So would these be the same ways to call attention, call attention to the dispatcher? Because we don't really expect somebody to sit there and watch the monitors.
Well, I mean, considering these are at playgrounds, they would be probably getting notifications like every second.
Thank you for saying that. I actually meant like in the evening where I perceive most of the problems would be. I think across town, most of the problems we have are in the evenings. In the evenings, would they set off some kind of alarm that would alert them to look? Does that make sense?
We could probably do a motion alarm, but considering Elmer Thomas, we do have the prairie dogs. Those might set those off too, so they may get notifications there too. I'm not sure if there's a height requirement. That's something I probably have to go into detail with the vendors to see what they can monitor.
I'd like to hear any input Dwayne has, because I know I've heard him talk about this before. And so he's at least thought about it, and I think he told me that we had some cameras in McMahon Park, but was unsure where they were monitored. So, not to put you on the spot, Dwayne, but there's the spot right there.
Let me ask I need to ask a quick question.
Oh, okay,
Mayor.
just a minute. Mr. Gill wants to ask a
I
question.
wanted to ask a question. On these cameras, I know they're called security cameras, but is our main intent to watch the people, the kids in this, or to have them there in case there's damage or something like that's done? Then we'll have a recorded history of someone that did it and what it is. Because if if it's just to watch the property and be able to find out what's going on, that would be a simpler process than trying to, save someone from getting mugged or something like that.
No, these cameras that I was looking at have the ability to record it. So if there were an incident, then we can actually go and research it.
Yeah, okay.
But I would have an expectation that at night, if somebody showed up in a park, that the police would be dispatched because they really don't have a reason being there. Don't our parks close at a certain time? Or?
That's what I'm going to say.
Yeah,
All the parks close at 11
Judy,
p.m.
before you go, I had just 2 questions. And Dwayne, maybe this would be, because when I was on LEDA, I think, didn't we buy some cameras because they were having some problems? And they were looking for cameras that weren't necessarily indestructible, but they were like armor plated or something. There were some pretty hefty cameras. Remember they were knocking over stuff in the cemetery? We put it out there. If I remember right, this thing talked or something. It did some other. Go ahead, Mary Ann.
That it's not working, that the cameras are in the cemetery, and these were supposed to say, something like saw you or something, because we'd had a lot of cemetery damage. But I don't think those are working. I don't know if anybody knows that for sure. But anyway.
I think they had a bunch of dummy ones, and then they had one that worked. But maybe you guys can answer that in a second. The second question is, on the placement, I was looking down there, I think 10 years ago there was someone shot. I'm not really sure where it was at, but like the parking lot down there where they have the geese, where they feed the geese down in there, that's
Yes.
kind of a hidden area
Yes.
down there. And I'm thinking that if there's trouble, a lot of trouble comes where there's no accountability, people are hiding back in little areas. And I didn't know if that was one of the reasons, or if these are all the cameras, or.
No,
if
this
that
was just a brief overview.
Yeah,
Just
I
like,
kinda
you know, hey, where everybody mostly congregates, that's
Okay,
all.
that-
Yeah.
that-
If
that
there's
was-
other placements, then yes,
Yeah, that
we'll
was
consider.
my only question. Dwayne's probably going to cover the sign.
I was just gonna say, the parks do close at 11, so as far as the notifications, I would think we could set something up to where the notifications would begin at the 11 PM hour. So if we got a notification, obviously somebody's in the park that's not supposed to be there, right? And then obviously we talked about having those monitored in the dispatch center, or at least having the screens up for them. What we asked staff to do was prioritize a few of the main parks. That's why we picked the three that she gave you the overview on, with Elmer Thomas, Greer, and McMahon. And then my suggestion would be to get with those, the experts out there, let them evaluate the parks and bring us a proposal back as to what they think will provide the best coverage. And then also as well as match up the equipment with our IT department, see what's compatible.
So I like that suggestion. I would recommend that motion. If we get a motion and a second, we'll continue discussion. I have a motion. Is there a second? Second. And a second. Discussion or debate? Mr. Harris.
Yes, Judy, we lost our screen. So the parking lot that Councilman Hampton was talking about, where it's over by the lake. When I go home at night, there's always people there late at night. It's not it's not lit at all, as a matter of fact. And then the parking lot that's sort of over by the Holiday House is not, I noticed, is not covered as well. And furthermore, I would like this to include the cemetery, because the cameras in the cemetery are not working. I have not been able to get any feedback from Parks and Rec on that. And I think that the cemetery needs to be secured, because people are cutting the fences and traveling through there at night going to. So I really would like to have that as part of this package.
Go ahead.
Well, what I was going to suggest, we may want to add the cemetery to those three. As part of that motion, if that would be acceptable, and then we can get that. As part
So
of
who made that motion? Do you accept the cemetery ad?
Yes.
And who seconded it? Do you accept the cemetery ad? Okay, we got a motion and a second. Ms. Chapman.
I really love these ideas. I think they're very important, but as we're getting proposals and cost, I sure hope that we also include with that cost to maintain it, for upkeeping, for new, whatever has to be done. Sometimes we buy these things and then all of a sudden we don't have money in the budget for upkeep and maintenance. So I hope that is included.
Yes.
Mitch?
Yes, if I may. I just wanted to say, from a Parks and Recreation perspective, I really like this. I appreciate that it's come to council. We had a situation soon after I was hired here at the City of Lawton where we had somebody go out to McMahon Park and do some donuts. And did a lot of damage to some of the ground out there, but we had cameras that caught that individual, where they were able to identify who that was based on the license plate on the truck, and they were able to prosecute effectively just because they had cameras out there. So from a Parks and Rec perspective, I think this is a very big advantage. I think this is something that we would like to support.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion carries 8-0. Thank you, guys. By the way, you exceeded my expectations, already having us estimates. I appreciate that. Number 22, discuss the need for an amphitheater in Elmer Thomas Park and direct staff to issue requests for proposal for the design build of said amphitheater. Mr. Warren, you want to jump in on this one?
Council, I think it's, I don't remember how many years it's been. We built the base for an amphitheater at Elmer Thomas Park. And I think it's time that we finish that. I think we have the opportunity to have a lot of entertainment that could come there in the cooler portions of the year, the spring and the fall, in the evenings. It doesn't have to be a huge multi-million-dollar extravaganza. I mean, it could be if we could come up with the money. But it could be just a simple amphitheater with appropriate seating. I don't know how many people have been to the Zoo Amphitheater in Oklahoma City, but there's some of the benches I think were built originally, maybe WPA or somebody way back. But a lot of it is just cut into the ground, and it's terraced so that there's flat areas so that you can put your lawn chairs there. I mean, we could do something as simple as that. But this is another one of those things where we probably need to hire somebody that knows how to do that to give us a bunch of different options. But whatever that is, I sure hope that we can do it and make it a reality. I know I've been to many amphitheaters, and they can be like I said, anything from simple to extravagant. But what it does is it brings people together, and it's something that I think that we need to do, and it doesn't take a huge undertaking to put on an event at an amphitheater. You can do it simply, or you can do it grandiose, but I think it would give us a lot more options, and it will make that stage a more useful and attractive entity.
Would call your attention to the map up on the screen from the Parks Master Plan, and you can see the amphitheater that they drew in. Of course, you know we already have the stage there. There is a water feature with water running through the middle. That needs to be dealt with. How big to make it, I don't really have a clue. I think we could, the next slide, please. So that kind of shows the same thing, but I thought we had a slide here that that might have been on another item, I can't remember. That might have been on the sidewalk where you can kind of see where everything is now. I can't see it on here. But at any rate, I don't really know how to go about it. I visited with George Gill about it a little bit, because I assume you can go out for design build things, but at some point there has to be some guidelines of what it is that we're looking for, and I don't really know how to go about that. So I'm going to throw it to Mr. Gill and see what his input is here.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion at this time to have staff put a preliminary design together. I think this is something that we can do in-house. Doesn't have to be elaborate, as Councilman Warren said. It could be anything from grass seating to concrete to even a type of benches, depending on how big we wanted to make that area. I would estimate something like this for about 200, 250 people would be more than probably ever used. We don't have a lot of room that we need more than that. I think it's a perfect example for a project that would be a design build. We certainly have contractors in the area that are capable of a design and building proposal. So I'd like to make a motion that we go out for a request for proposal on a design build basis and supply preliminary drawings as far as having staff do that, just showing the area, and make some alternates for both the structures and the seating. They can come up with several different alternates. anything from a concrete stage to one that's a portable type stage. Probably be better to be more permanent. This is something that we could visit with staff about, or they could get further information on that. But I just feel this is something we need to do now, and it's something that we can do in-house, and we can get this thing going.
You guys took control of the microphone. I couldn't get it back. So I think what I heard there was get the staff to put together the preliminary to go out, request for proposal with some alternates or options of how we do it. Is that correct?
Yes.
Do we have a second? We do have a second. Discussion or debate? Mr. Harris. Randy, can you turn off your light, please? Thank you.
So I was in Bartlesville a year ago, and they have a stage. I mean, it is ultra simple, and it's just got a covering on it that's strong enough that they can hang lights and speakers and all that from it, as well as, actually theirs was flat. We do have that bowl, and I think Councilman Warren mentioned it. The zoo amphitheater is very simple. It's just it's just shelves, you know. I think there was a concrete lip or something, right, Randy? Around it was very, very simple. But I think Jason has some ideas on this as well, don't you? Drag you into this.
So, Mayor, Council, one of the things that we were thinking about as far as putting it in, as you mentioned, you know, being able to hang, we definitely want the roof to be able to do that, because that's something that is definitely going to be needed in the future. As far as location, improving the existing location where we already have the cement pad is a wonderful place to start. One thing that I brought up to my chain is a festival field or area, which could be the space between the Comanche National Museum and the National Guard Armory, where you could actually fit a lot of people, actually fence that area off. One of the things with the proposal right now, where we have the amphitheater at, is it's great for public gatherings and public events, but there's just simply no way to fence off the area to actually close off to do, you know, to sell tickets for a concert.
So you're saying it needs to have a way to fence it off. I think I remember Mr. Warren saying that in a conversation, a way to fence it off, didn't you, at one time?
There was a plan at one time to fence off the entire park, a lot like they do with the zoo amphitheater.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just the amphitheater, it's a large area.
Mm-hmm.
So for clarification, that was one reason I came up here. The existing stage that we have right now would be limited as far as seating wise, more to what Councilman Gill had indicated. What Jason is talking about is a completely different area that would open up the park to be able to use it for large events, and it would be securable. So if we could do both, that would be what staff would recommend, is we do something, put a plan together for the existing amphitheater, if you will. Maybe try to maintain the green space. I like the green, you know, the shelf type look. You're going to have a lot of constituents out there that are going to really be in opposition to us putting a bunch of pavement in. So the green space would be a good idea. But the other one, I don't think would be as substantial of an investment, because we wouldn't actually be building seating. We'd be maintaining a field, constructing a stage, and whatever necessary equipment we would need to do that.
Mayor, my motion wasn't for an auditorium to have concerts in. My motion was for a small amphitheater so people can come and do art programs, have local city events. 250 people would more than probably be adequate for that. I think if we're looking at having concerts and people paying to come in with tickets, whole different program. So I just want to clarify my motions for just a small event center that we can go ahead and put in there with very minimal. There's no such thing anymore as minimal expense. Does everyone understand that? If you're going to build a canoe, it's the price of a yacht. So, and I'm talking about the 250 existing area, some sort of very inexpensive seating which is very adequate for the type of project I'm talking about. So it's not what you're talking about with the concerts and the ticket pay. And most people, if they're going to do that, they want air conditioning anyway, and we certainly can't do that.
Yeah, and so actually, exactly what you're talking about is part of the Shepler Master Plan, that kind of smaller amphitheater
Get a little
area.
closer to the mic for me.
Okay, so the Shepler Park Master Plan actually has exactly what you're talking about, that smaller amphitheater that's going to be befitting for 200, 250 people. The amphitheater right now in Elmer Thomas Park, where the cement pad is, that's actually conducive for 1,000 plus people, where that amphitheater is. But as I think it's been mentioned before by Councilman Warren, there's a lot to be cleaned up to finish up where that amphitheater is.
Is that the area you're talking, come and show me the area you're talking about on that. And I realize what you're saying, but I'm trying to figure out where you're talking about.
So this area here, this is 1,000 plus people. This is, building the stage. This is what we already have. I think this is what Councilman Warren was talking about, improving upon. The area that I'm talking about is, yes, this area here, where it could be a concert space, which is the area between the National Guard, or Comanche National Museum and the Armory. And then the smaller spaces that Councilman Gill was talking about, that's actually part of the Shepler Master Plan to have that venue there that would work for festivals like with Arts for All.
Yeah, well, I'm talking about the smaller one. And just because they say you can seat 1,000 people there, I'm figuring seating for 250 thereabouts. And if it needs more, that's something we can easily do. Thank you.
You may not need a mic.
Probably don't. Probably made my point.
Yeah, Mayor.
Hold on just a minute.
Oh,
Can you
okay.
yield your mic? Please turn yours off. Thank you.
No, I was talking about the one on the Shepler Master Plan, evidently. And just because it's an area big enough for 1,000 people, that's great. We're still looking at 250, and in time, if it grows or we need more, we'll already have the land there. We'll just have to figure out seating. And it could be lawn chairs, but it's time to get something going on that, and I think that'll suffice. So I'm not looking at the one that you presented.
And it could be seating for 250 with a lawn that could handle overflow. Now, before I give it back to you, we took it away from Mr. Harris, so he's got something he wants to say, and then we'll give it to you.
So how many people do we have at Freedom Fest watching the fireworks show?
I mean, at Freedom Festival in the park, we estimate around 10,000.
And how many people did we have sitting in that bowl? Because I remember a lot more
Yeah,
than
and,
two.
and that's what I'm saying. Within that bowl, it's 1,000 plus. I know GIS did a study for me, even with, at that time, we were looking at COVID, and we were looking at if we were to do it safely, I think we still fit 300 to 500 in there with social distancing of 5 feet around everybody.
And so I think that area is perfect for a larger event, and then whatever, and obviously the Half report showed the area for the lawn area for those kind of concerts. But I think Councilman Gill's right in that, and especially if the Shepler Park will accomplish what he wants to, I think we can have the best of all worlds there.
Oh, for sure.
Mr. Hampton.
Yes, pretty much the discussion that just took place was there, but you're saying that this area right here is larger than the 250, and before you answer that, Councilman Warren, this is the one you're talking about, right? The one that's in the park existing now with the stage, and that's the one that we're discussing right now, right? Mm-hmm. As far as the motion, go ahead.
Well, actually, I was going to, so for clarification, so Councilman Gill, are you saying that with, that the motion would be for this amphitheater to be finished out with seating for 200 to 250 with the lawn being extended to seat more?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, that we're talking about Elmer Thomas Park.
Yep. Yeah, so this is the one that seats 250, and the one that they're going to put in Shepler Park is the larger one, is that correct?
Well, this one, we'll put in seating for 200, 250, and then it'll be able to hold, 1,000 plus.
During the...
And then Shepler will be more the entire area holding 250.
And that's the small Shepler Park.
Yeah.
There was talk of putting a bigger amphitheater once they tear down the old post office or IT building, whatever. But my point is, we're talking about this one right here first, and it is no doubt that we can probably put as many amphitheaters as we want in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Mayor.
I've got a question. Okay, unfortunately, we've already got this off the screen, but do you see how they've cut, you can see there where the water feature is? And they've cut this short. Is that gonna, the way it's designed, are you saying, and I know it's just conceptual, but are you saying that's 1,000? Because it seems to me like to get to 1,000, you'd have to go all the way back up to the water feature.
It's over here.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't,
All right.
that down here, that's down, yeah, look, he's.
Okay, and you can see, now, you can't see on the screen is where the water feature is, but the water feature is outside what is drawn there. And typically, if you're out there for the Freedom Festival, people are all the way back up to the water feature. Of course, the water feature kind of affects the seating, and something needs to be done about that. At any rate, I think we're headed towards that. Now, what I would say about that lawn area is that's a separate issue thank you. Who did that? Cool. So you can see the water feature is almost where this basketball court or whatever it is.
That's the one I'm talking about, right?
Okay.
The water.
Right.
Yeah, so I'll have Judy real quick talk about what her office can do as far as like seating, because that's, like I said, they can figure it out. So.
GIS, we can actually overlay this on what we currently have, so our current aerial, so we can actually send that out to the council
Okay, well,
members.
if you can go to the next page, you can zoom in, and it's overlaid where you can see what's already there.
Yeah, but you don't see the shading behind it of what we currently have that's
I can
at the
I can on here, but you can't on there for some reason.
Yeah, do we not pick the?
Yeah, well they have it when you pull it off of line, it has that part.
Oh,
So then that's
okay.
what he's talking about. But then, like I said, you guys could figure out.
Yeah, we can see how many seating.
At any rate, I think Mr. Gill's motion allows for options. So I think we're good to move forward.
Mayor,
Oh, yes, Ms. Chapman.
I would like to have clarification on what we're talking about, this water feature in the middle. Is that not a drainage area right now?
Well, that can all be put underground.
Yeah.
Okay,
and
that's
out of
what
the
I
way.
wanted clarification,
We don't
waiting
want 'em wash-
patiently.
No washing feet during the concert. We're gonna get rid of that.
It's right here now. We can do anything we want.
Mr. Hampton, did I hear you say you had something else to say? No? Everybody good?
One more question. Jason? What did we pay for the rental of the superstructure for Freedom Fest?
So for the full framing and speakers, you're looking about 15,000.
So we'll save that every time.
We would still have to rent the speakers, but it would probably shave at least $5,000 off having that structure already in place along with the roof.
Okay, thanks.
All right, let's vote. Need one more. There it is, 8-0. Consider directing staff, number 23, consider directing staff to proceed with the planning and engineering work for the construction of a sidewalk around Lake Helen and establish a timeline of having a sidewalk open for foot traffic no later than April 1, 2024. Joe Painter.
Let me catch you up. I was just thinking about the amphitheater. How are we going to get that?
Joe, the idea here, I'm not sure, I'm not sure that there's not already work being done on that. I did have a conversation with Mike. I was unclear, we were talking about something else, and I was unclear if work has already started, but I think we're ready to move forward with that, unless there's something I'm unaware of. Would like to get it going.
We get money on that, right? Money from the.
Well, let me give you an update.
No, they chose a different project and got money.
We tried to get federal funds for it and another project. They gave us actually money for the other project, which was substantially bigger, which took a sidewalk project off our sidewalk list.
Right.
So we can add this project to the sidewalk list. So that's good. We can use our on-call MTC that's been doing all the sidewalks around town. This would be a great project for them. Unfortunately, their contract has expired. So we're working right now to get it rebid and out there to get another on-call contractor hired to get this going again. And then we would be able to insert this into the list and get the sidewalk around the Lake Helen.
So, so we've got it drawn on this conceptual drawing from the previous item.
Right.
Can we get going from there and get plans? And-
Yeah, that's what I mean, that we really have, the work we did to try to get the grant was pretty detailed, and it's enough to once we get an on-call contract back up and running, to get them started on it. I mean, we just get them.
They can't read plans that well anyway, so they'll be happy.
Okay, so can we get a motion for approval?
I make a motion, we approve. Second.
A motion and a second, please vote.
Thanks, guys.
I've got 6 votes.
Who didn't vote?
Motion carries 8-0. Now, I will also say that if you look at this master plan, you've got some kind of a boardwalk here with what looks like picnics. That's pretty cool, but I don't have a close-up to understand that. I'd like to understand that better, as well as these 2 walkways over the inlets here. Do you see what I'm talking about, Mitch?
Yeah,
And I'd like some information to understand that better, because that's really a cool feature that doesn't look like it would be tremendously hard to put together.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
That's the area where he wanted to build it up, where people could sit there and kids could sit there and fish off the wall. It was supposed to be a little wall that walks right up to the water, but people would be able to sit there and fish.
Okay, do we have any, and I haven't seen this other than those 2 slides I have. Is there more to this?
No, sir, there's not. Those are conceptual drawings that were provided by Sorry. We do not currently have any additional images for this park. Those were conceptual drawings that were provided by HAF as ideas that could be implemented at Elmer Thomas Park.
So I'm kind of inclined, instead of going back to half, I'm kind of inclined to just put out design-build bids for the parts of this that we like, and some of it may have to be moved, because I don't have a lot of stomach for, like, I see they do away with the road going through there. I don't have a lot of stomach for tearing up good roads and building more. But I like a lot of the things they came up with. I'm not at all interested in moving Miracle Park.
Right.
But I do like that lawn that I believe is what Jason was talking about over there. I do like that lawn, and shouldn't be too difficult to do, but we'll bring those back at another time.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. I'd like to visit with you more about that, and maybe we'll bring back that boardwalk thing.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's see, I lost my place here. We struck item 24.
Then we need to strike item 25.
Okay, hold on a minute.
I made a motion that we go ahead with the sidewalks, but that's nothing to do with that.
We did that.
Okay.
Now we're striking 24, and I forgot to strike 25. We're striking 25. Brings up staff reports. Number 26, receive report on the implementation of Council Policy 113, the access policy, and take action as deemed necessary. John.
Mayor, Council, as you recall, Council Policy 1-13 was implemented 2 weeks ago by your vote. So before I talk about the implementation, I would like to back up a little bit and just say that, you know, maybe about a year and a half ago, we had an extremely liberal access policy. There was, you know, you could walk in, you could really go anywhere you wanted to in the building. There was no limitations or restrictions whatsoever. And so we've kind of evolved as things have occurred here in City Hall, and we need to have a more secure environment. And Council, you all agreed by unanimous vote 2 weeks ago. So there have been a few hiccups with respect to the implementation. Initially when we started the sign-in procedure, we got a couple reports that individuals were signing in with fake names or aliases or whatever. And the response when we heard that is, hey, well, we'll just, we'll make folks show ID, and that way we can kind of take the fake names off the table. And so we did that for a couple of days. There was some backlash on social media. There were some folks that didn't like that, and certainly we respect our citizens' opinions. I would say, though, there's a lot of discussion as to whether or not an officer at the front desk asking someone to show their ID was a violation of someone's Fourth Amendment rights. And I can tell you, Council, that the case law is very clear. That is not a constitutional violation for an officer to ask a citizen to show their ID. But that fact aside, in the listening to our citizens, we decided to back off that, and that wasn't the best way to implement the policy, especially after considering that Oklahoma City, you go to the state capitol, you go through the metal detector, put your wallet, cell phone, and keys in the dish, and then you just go through. And I was in Kansas this past weekend. I went to the state capitol at Topeka, same process. So we're fairly confident that we can get at personnel accountability within the building through our camera system and through doing keeping a running tally of individuals and citizens that come in. And what I really want to say here is that we absolutely don't want to make City Hall a place where our citizens aren't welcome, but we want to protect our citizens. And I think that's critical as we move forward, is getting the right balance between openness and transparency and security. And that's kind of what we were struggling with the last few days. I'm sure that you all have read about it. I've talked to some of you. So, but that's where we are now. And I think that we're at a good spot where we're balancing both of those respective demands. And I would also like to say that, and I hate to put him on the spot, we got Manny there in the back. Manny, will you come on down, please? Manny is our officer that sits at the front desk. And in addition to our security personnel, Manny interfaces with the public. And I can tell you that even when we were going through this policy, come on up, Manny.
Don't be bashful.
Of having, asking individuals for their ID, Manny and no one else denied anyone access to the building. We were just trying to keep tabs of who was in the building and where they were going. And I think the way in which we're interacting with citizens is appropriate. Manny, I think, is doing a really good job of interfacing with our citizens, letting them know what the requirements are, but at the same time being respectful and not confrontational. So that's all I have, subject to your questions, Council.
So I will just make comment. I've known Manny probably since the first year. By the way, he doesn't like to be called Manny. But I've known Manny since about the first year I've been the mayor. And you know what? He has a very good way with individuals. So I'm glad that we've got you in that right spot, because I've seen you deal with individuals, and I appreciate the way that you do it. And there's a fine balance there between, a police officer controlling the scene and being nice about it. World-class customer service, and I can see you doing that. And I appreciated, I want to say I saw the TV interview, and I appreciated the way you handled that, admitted an error, and, you know, you said we're not perfect, and we're not. And we corrected it, and I commend you for that. Mr. Hampton.
Yes, Mayor, I just want to second what you're saying. I am very happy and pleased that we found a balance. You know, anytime you implement a program, like I said earlier, you got to find your balance, and it seems like we've kind of come in line with a lot of what other state and government buildings has done, and I just want to commend you on that, and we thank the citizens for their input, even those that were more than excited, if I can say it that way. So thank you for that. I also want to vouch for the Manuel. He lives in Ward 5. His demeanor. He worked for the judge for quite a while and had some programs that were really, really meaningful for our city and whatnot. And I'm glad to see him back here. Thank you.
What do you want to tell us?
Well, I just want to say thank you for your comment, Mayor, Council. And actually, down there, for the most part, everything's ran smooth. People do understand the fact that, like you said, things have happened in the past. We've had to evolve and make some changes, and for the most part, everyone's understanding. And I mean, you know, we have a lot of good citizens that support the police department and military here. And yeah, you have one or two that just, well, you know, but for the most part, it's ran pretty smooth. Yes, sir. And thanks again for your compliments.
You bet. Thank you. Well, hey, I meant every word of it. You deserved it.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak? All right, we're good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you for that report, City Manager. Let's move to item number 27, receive an update on no-cost, low-cost, family-friendly activities and the status of the indoor park at Central Plaza, and take action as deemed necessary. Jason.
Okay, again, thank you, Mayor and council members. So we got the PowerPoint up there, and so the idea is to work along with VISTA with an area within the park that is reasonable to put together an area that is free, open to the public, for use, for kids to have fun and families. So if you go next, I got the clicker right here, cool. And let's see if that'll play. All right. So this is just a video from Bryant Montgomery. So this is to get an idea of the zip lines and what they look like. And so as you can see, there's no harnesses. You can see that, you know, people there's not fencing around them, and they actually go both directions. In the proposal, there's also an accessible zip line that you just saw there in the video. Like I said, the idea of kind of focusing on the zip lines is, like I said, with any families that have kids, you go to like the gathering place in Tulsa, there's always a line for the zip line. So those are the zip lines that we're actually looking at, and so the space that we're looking at is where the theater in the mall used to be, where the food court is, and then extending, and then like I said, so you can kind of see where those would kind of fit in there. Going down the hallways, that would be an additional phase depending on how the project works. But really, it's looking at that very top circle there, just that area. If we were looking at a budget of around $100,000, that would cover about 4 zip lines, the underlayment, and about a 30% cost for install, and that project could basically get going. consultant that I've been working with ACS Playgrounds, one of the recommendations was that with the zip lines, that you're leaving out like the lower demographic. There is a play area already in the park for the lower demographic, but one idea would be to take out one of the zip lines to put a park element in for younger children that aren't quite able to reach up to the zip lines. The basic ones run from about 15 to 20. It really depends on the length. These are customizable. The Zip Cruise Assisted, that was the one, like I said, that's accessible for everybody. That's got the harness on it. Again, 15 to 20, and then the price range for the 20 to 50. They're able to make these like 75 feet long, and so it's a slightly different structure. So it's looking at purchasing some of those, and then you have the standard playset zip lines. These are the ones that you see that are just about 10, 15 feet long. Kids grab them and zip them back and forth. That are a lot cheaper, and so you can get a combination of the longer ones that are two directional, as well as the smaller ones that are 0 to 5K, and you can start putting them in place. So you have the different stats on those. Like I said before, the assisted is kind of smaller children, but they say about 5 to 12. Looking at a budget of around, like I said, 90 to 100,000. You'd be looking at about 4 zip lines, the underlayment, and the install, and that could be part of like basically a phase 1 to a phase 2. That phase right there, where I have the 116 over on the side, that we could advertise that we have over 100 feet of zip lines available in the Central Plaza. And then if everything went well, if things were working well with Vista, that it could be expanded upon. Or if we were looking at, well, Vista's expanding out, and we've installed these here. Do we look at possibly another location in the future? But the idea that it being indoors, and that it's, in Oklahoma, when it's 110 out, we're already heating and cooling that space. Let's have fun indoors. So, and then, like I said, the proposal, I know the font gets a little small on this one, but is to build from like 6 to 8 to 14 to possibly 16, and where we're able to say we have over 500 feet of zip line space to come have fun. That's completely free, open to the public, and increase traffic in the mall. But really just giving something for citizens to do, whether it's freezing outside or it's 110 degrees outside. In addition to that, we just spent some money, and we're able to get the control boxes that we need for the projectors, and we tested it out yesterday, and we are actually able to get the projectors working in one of the theaters. We're looking at doing a screening this Friday, and testing things out, seeing how things run. We have to work with the mall staff to get the heating and cooling, make sure that's running. I have a member of my staff that's going to make sure the popcorn machine is working there in the theater. And so that way...
What time do you need to be there?
What time do you need to be there? So we're looking at about 7 o'clock. But one of the things that we're looking at for this Friday is just to see if everything's working. So we don't want to have 300 people show up if we haven't tested things out first. And also we want to get the flow of people. We want to try to figure out how much staffing that we need. So we're looking at this one, doing it possibly in combination with Lawton Community Theater, doing a screening of the play that they just did. And so that way we don't have to have the rights for it. And that way we can just test things out with people we know, make sure things work, and then every 2 weeks be able to have it open to the public, have popcorn, and have some free or low-cost family-friendly entertainment.
Did I hear a date that's going to be ready?
Say that again?
Did I hear a date you're going to show your first movie?
We're looking at 11th to test things out, and then we're looking at 2 weeks, so the following Friday, because we have to work out the logistics with the mall as well as far as their hours and getting the heating and cooling going. So that would be the 25th to have a public showing.
Okay. Now, can you go back to your picture where you showed where you were planning on placing these in front of Dillard's up through that north door?
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
now, what are you doing with it? If I'm not mistaken, that's the corridor, the food court.
yes.
What are you doing with the tables?
So that's one of the things about, as looking at how these are set up, they're actually working on the renderings now that it doesn't have to be continuous, and there could still be tables in certain areas near the food court.
Okay, and have you visited with Mark Brace, the chairman of the FISTA, and Krista, the CEO over there? Have you visited with them about this and showed this to them?
I have visited with Krista, yes. I have not visited with Mark Brace at this time.
And do you want to put words in her mouth and tell me what she said?
Well, it was one of the concerns that I already brought up, and that's that if Vista continues to expand, the options of, instead of doing phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 here in the mall, being able to move what has been installed to another location and the cost of that. But right now, it is space that is available.
Okay, so I do think it's important that we work with the FISTA. I'm all for this, and I was hoping to see some other items like sitting areas and cornhole where people could sit, and other small kid stuff. I don't know the other word for it, but it's all used stuff. And because when I think of indoor park, I don't just think of zip lines. I'm fine with those. They're very low. They're not way up in there. They're easy, and I'm guessing no employee is required.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Now, and I think it would be interesting, and you're a very creative guy, to come up with other ideas, or maybe I don't know what we could do, but it's like miniature golf,
Yeah,
we do have some empty stores in there.
Yeah. So there is a miniature golf, and there's also, they did this in the town where I grew up, where it was indoor frisbee golf, but they had it was like crocheted frisbees. So if you got hit in the head, it was like getting hit with a soft snowball, it'd just crumple. But yet they set up a course that, people are actually really excited about, playing. And then you just, you give the thing about that is all of a sudden you have something that needs to be manned, where, somebody, you give your ID or something in order to get the frisbees, and then to get your frisbee back, or to get your item back, you have to get the frisbee back.
Okay, so now go to the money page. Okay, right there, 96,000, right?
Yes.
And if Vista didn't like the placement, you could move it somewhere. Or if they didn't like one of them, you could move it, whatever.
Yeah,
right.
And that's what I'm looking at, getting the cost, because for these, they actually do anchor them into the ground. One of the good things, though, is that it's like a vertical install. They're not drilling very far down. They have just a wide base. So there would be a cost associated more than just unbolting and rebolting, but it wouldn't be huge.
Council, questions? Ms. Hankins?
Do we still have, there was a miniature golf, night miniature golf, I think, in there at one point. Is it still in there?
Last time I was in there, I didn't see one.
Okay, because I was thinking that might be good. A lot of people like that, and that's a good kid thing too, an adult.
Other comments, council?
Wasn't there a little kids area down by Penny's?
There is still the little kids area that has the bear and the bridge and the duck, and my kids still love going there.
Little kid stuff.
Yeah, little kid stuff, yes.
Jason, I think you still like to go there too, right?
Maybe a little bit.
So I'm going to tell you, we're not getting as much discussion, I thought. Ms. Johnson?
I had two questions. Number one is, what was the choice for that space? Having to, have it right there by the food court. What was the thought process with that? And then the second question is, I think we kind of talked a little bit about insurance. So who's going to be covering that? Is that part of the city, or we're joining the FISTA? How's that going to be taken care of?
Yeah. I think the location, that was a discussion with Vista, and talking about if we were to open up the theater space, that it's keeping everything all in one area, as well as near the food court. As far as liability goes, again, I would default to the city attorneys, or what kind of disclaimers we can put up, as far as similar to a pool at a hotel where you have a sign that this is at your own risk and that this is not monitored, so it's clear.
I've got it from a pretty good source that I think Vista would be willing to pick up the insurance.
Okay, I like that. So I'm looking, don't want to step on anybody, but here, now, do we have to bid this out?
So
Is
this would
a
have to be
state
bid
con-
out, yes.
We do have to bid it out. I would like to see us go out for bids and move forward subject to Vista's approval and further direct staff to continue developing the indoor park idea as discussed.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion or debate? Please vote. One more. Motion carries 8-0. Thank you. Looking forward to seeing how that turns out. How long will it be before we get bids back on that? 30 days? I can't hear. About 6 weeks? Okay.
Mayor, it'll take some time to get the actual RFP together, and then we'll go through the process, and then you have to give a certain window to actually start receiving those. So I would give it about 60 days to actually start getting the bids back in.
Okay, and you did hear the part about continuing to develop this?
Yes.
And so you're free to bring stuff back at the next meeting if you are working that fast.
Okay.
Hint.
Sounds good.
Hint, hint. Okay?
Sounds good.
Thank you so much, Jason.
you.
I appreciate it. This brings up item number 28, FY 2022 and 2023 Annual Financial Report. Joe Don.
Well, good afternoon again, or is it good evening? Just before I get started, Mayor, do I have a time limit?
Yes. I think it's 3 minutes, isn't it?
3 minutes? Try to get through this in 3 minutes? Okay. Well, oops. Okay, start here. One of the things I want to say is this is a smaller version of the report you were provided. We won't go into as much detail here as we have in the past. And I want to put a disclaimer on this, is these numbers are not audited, and the numbers would be subject to change with our 23 physical audit. What we're looking at here on this slide is the combination of our major operating funds, our general fund and our enterprise fund. And what we see here is that our revenues, we collected about 13% more than we did in 2021, but we fell short of our benchmark by about 7% than our that's not reflected. What we're seeing here is that we fell a little short on our revenues from both 2022 and our budget. The big thing that I want to point out here is that this shortfall or apparent deficiency is not a result of anything that where we've collected less money. It's more of a change because we changed some accounting procedures. In the past, we were recording all of our capital improvement sales tax in the general fund, and then expense transferring it out to the capital improvement fund, kind of double work. And that artificially inflates our general fund. So we brought that back down, and now that when we receive the sales tax money, the 2019 Propel money goes straight to the that operating fund for that. And that's the reason for the decline that we see here. Excuse me. The decline here that we see here in revenues. Now also in our expenditures, we're a little bit above where we were last year by about $2 million, really close to where we were at this time last year. And then, but we are about $17 million less than our budget. And again, that is because we did not have to transfer out that money. A lot of that money went straight over to the capital improvement fund. And the other changes, the other things that had happened to help bring that money down is that our department heads and our staff are working really good to help maintain our cost of doing business. So we're pricing things out. We're getting work done a little bit cheaper than what we had originally expected. If we look at just our revenues across all of our funds, we can see that about 43% of our revenues are taxes. That would be sales tax, use tax, franchise fees, any of those. 29% of our revenues come from services, charges for services, basically utilities, water, sewer, garbage. Those are the bulk of our revenues, to about 70%. Other revenues are things like animal control, miscellaneous, just miscellaneous things such as that, loans that we may have gotten. We've got about 4% for our interest income. About 1% of our revenues are grants, licenses and permits, and fines and forfeitures, respectively. Our expenditures, 36% of our expenditures are personnel, our largest portion. Capital outlay, which does not, this slide does not reflect the capital outlay for Propel, is 6%. Debt service, 21%. Other services and charges, 26%. Materials and supplies are about 11%. Our biggest expenditure here is our personnel expenditures. Our debt is spread out pretty evenly. We've got 42% of our debt is Lawton Water Authority, 35% the city. Other debt that we have is 23%. This would be our GO bonds and such as that. Yes. Well, ad valorem is going to fall into the city's portion, 35%.
Joe Don, does the 23% debt, does that include trust authorities that?
Yes.
Okay.
Just as we look at our sales tax escalation over the year, we see we're well above the monthly trend, which is a 10-year average. But our budget and our actual are just within a couple of $1 million of each other. So we're running really close to what we budgeted as far as our actual collections. I know an important measurement that we have is our fund balance percentage. This is for the general fund, which is the same metric that Crawford and Associates uses. When we go through these calculations, we can see that at the beginning of the budget year, we expected our ending fund balance as a percentage of revenues to be about 20%. And this would be about a 2% increase from the last presentation from Crawford and Associates. I feel like we're going to be about 24%, at the end of this budget year, at the next presentation. That's kind of the percentage I predict we'll be in, and that is well within the range GFOA says is the acceptable range, which is 10 to 30%. Now, this is all getting down to this last slide, and that is financially, I think we're doing pretty good. I know this is the one y'all were really most interested in. We're in a pretty good position. We do have some things we've got to kind of be cognizant of and some things we've got to work through. But financially speaking, we're in pretty good shape.
So that was a good report. It was 8 minutes. We went 3. So I think we'll fine you and increase I think we'll fine you and increase our fines and forfeitures.
Fine me. As long as I can pay it out in increments, I'll be good.
Thank you. Good report, Joe Don. Did anyone have any questions? I don't want to keep questions down. Okay, we're good. Thank you, sir. Always bring those big smiley faces. Do I have a motion for executive session? Motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Gill. Yes. Hampton. Yes. Uyghur. Yes. Johnson. Warren. Hankins. Harris. Chapman.
Yes, Caitlin, I'm sorry, I was gone on last week because I would have loved to have made a speech about the LATS deal. That's okay. It sounded good. I read the press release. I know. And like I said, I was out of town. I'd been happy to do it. No, but I plan to do it pretty quick. Yeah, I think it's called Streets and Roads Committee, I believe. Not yet, but I'll let you know as quick as I can. I think I might add a deal. I just put streets, roads, and bridges. I'll call you if I find it. That's probably good enough. Is this just a press release? I just use streets, roads, and bridges. Joe Don? Okay. So I'll let you know. It's going to kind of depend on everyone's schedule because you don't have to list the meetings. But I would say they're going to be on an as-need basis. Because we're going to try to initiate some programs, so we're not going to need a lot of oversight once we get the program. So I'd say they're going to be on an as-need basis. And I'll have to look at all the schedules and slide in between. It won't be too difficult because engineering is active. They're going to need it. You know, I don't know. I don't know if we're going to have to do open speed and I'll actually turn them around. If they're not open, of course they can still be open, but there'll be more of a workshop probably. I'll find out. You doing okay? Okay, good. Thank you.
Well, that's overall.
back to work, so I'll miss executive session. Okay, all right, thank you.
That was the overall report. I was just looking at one piece of it, which is the fund balance piece. Okay. I don't go through all the calculations. That's not the same. We need that to be between 10 and 30%. Probably very close to the 30, but not, definitely not more than. And how are we doing on, our retirement? Well, we are making our contributions right now as for the ordinance. We're working on a way to change the ordinance and to start funding that by the actuarial report, starting next year. I think during the year here, we will bring forth an ordinance change that reflects that. Tim and I are working with it on. Okay, good. Good.
Okay. We're back from executive session. Please call the roll.
Hampton. Uyghur. Johnson. Warren. Hankins. Harris. Chapman. Gill.
Executive session item number 29. Tim?
Pursuant to Section 307B4, Title 25 Oklahoma statutes, the council convened an executive session to discuss the pending claim in the United States District Court, Western District of Oklahoma, titled Kent Jackson as personal representative of the estate of Israel Williams versus the City of Lawton et al., case number CIV 23284G. Conversation did occur regarding the case, and it's my understanding we have a motion.
Yes, sir. As due to the law firm Gouldsby, Proctor, and Hefner having a staffing change and needing to withdraw from the case, I move to approve a retainer agreement with the law firm Pierce, Couch, Hendrickson, Basinger, and Green for the attorney Robert Lafridge. Laffiander, excuse me, and other members of the firm as authorized by the city attorney, and to represent current and former employees, city employees, Timothy Scallon, Natasha Bates, Wyatt Carter, Jeremy Kendron, Ronnie Walkins, Cassidy Salvery, Stephen Schwinder, and Tika Fisher, Ian Truce, DeLuce Allen, as well as any other individuals not specifically named in the amended petition or second amended complaint, but added later to the suit, who otherwise submits a request for representation and meets the requirements for representation and is subsequently approved by the City Council for representation.
Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. Please.
Discussion?
No discussion. Please vote. And we don't discuss the executive session items because we
No, I
might
just wanted him
reveal.
to rename some
Oh.
of those names. I didn't catch some of those names. Here, let me read
Okay,
it
let's
for
see.
you.
We have 7 here. Okay, there we go. 7-0. Bringing up item 30. Tim?
Pursuant to Section 307B4, Title 25 Oklahoma statutes, the council convened an executive session to discuss the pending action in the United States District Court for the Western District of Oklahoma titled Linda Town and Jeffrey Temple versus City of Lawton, case number CIV 23251. That conversation did occur, and no action is necessary.
Do I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Motion. Do I have a second? And a second. Please call the roll.
Uyghur. Johnson. Warren. Hankins. Chapman. Gill. Hampton.